Hi there, it's Bob Moog with UG Studios, and I'm here with Mr. Jeff Pinsker, who is the president of Amigo Games USA. But that's just what Jeff's doing today. What we're going to talk about in the next 10 minutes is sort of Jeff's career before and after Amigo Games. I'm going to start off with after. Jeff,
yes.
What are you planning to do after Amigo Games?
Well, I hear there may be an opening at U Games Studio, so I'm hoping that I can fill that. In fact, I'm hoping to interview the interviewer later on, and we'll see. That could be my audition.
Okay,
and if I do well in the audition, then maybe there'll be a full-time position for me in a little glass box at Toy Fair every year.
Well, we're actually going to be doing UG Studios interviews way beyond this little box at Toy Fair. We're planning over 100 interviews in the next 30 days.
Wow.
And we're going to be doing them in San Francisco, in London, and in Sydney, Australia.
Okay.
And so can you travel?
And I definitely want the job.
I was going to say, can you travel?
That's it. I
know
how to pack.
What we'll do, I will give you an audition. Now, what
Okay.
will you do with your day job?
Well, that was after, right?
Right,
so,
after.
Okay, after, yeah. So
you'll do your day job during the day, and then you can do this at night.
I was going to say, can we do? I was just going to ask. On those different time zones, I should be fine.
That sounds really good. That sounds okay. So that should work. Now, when we talk about after, what are your what are your salary requirements for this job? I'm assuming since you're already being paid by Amigo, we don't have to pay you.
I was going to say I want to make exactly the same amount that you do for doing this.
Okay.
It's in addition to your salary.
All right,
I'm
that's
happy
fair.
with that. You're a good negotiator. I'm confident you've done a great job in maximizing both of our income from this.
Okay, that sounds very fair. As you probably are noticing, Jeff and I are pretty familiar with each other. Jeff and I met when Jeff was in college at Stanford, and he worked for University Games for 10 years?
10 years.
10 years. He started out at an entry-level position in our marketing department, and he rose to be the only person other than me to be president of the company. So Jeff and I are good friends, and I've really enjoyed knowing him and also watching his very interesting career. So you're smiling.
Subtle. Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
No, I want you to talk about your interesting career.
I will talk about it. I want to hear what parts of my career you think were interesting, and then I will talk about it.
Okay, I think that the interesting stuff started when you were trying to figure out how to sell bottled water. I thought that was interesting.
That's kind of interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think Amazing Events was that interesting, so we don't need to talk about
that.
So
just for those of you who don't know what Amazing Events is, we had a company that did practical jokes for pay. And if you're in the Bob Moog world where that kind of thing happens every day, it's not so interesting. But the rest of the nation and the rest of the world seemed to think it was a pretty fun idea for a business.
Well, NPR, Wall Street Journal,
yeah.
I don't really think they're really the ones to decide on
People
what's
Magazine,
interesting. People Magazine.
ABC's Nightline. Yeah, no, you're right.
With Sam Donaldson?
Ted Koppel.
Oh, you had Ted Koppel.
I had Ted Koppel.
Not interesting.
No.
Not interesting hair and not interesting.
But he does have a pretty good alma mater, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
I think.
Yeah, I do like where he went to college.
Right.
Yes. And did you have Tom Brokaw?
I did not get
his
Tom
daughter
Brokaw.
went to Stanford.
Yeah. Very nice.
But then you came to University Games. Very interesting.
That was when that's when my career really got interesting.
That's when it really took off.
It did.
Jeff joined our company when we had about six people.
I was number 6.
He was number 6, and we were doing under 3. Actually, when he joined, we were doing 1.9 million in sales, and Jeff came and worked with our company until we were over 40 million in sales, and he was a real leader in driving us there. Do you remember what our deal was when you started about your job description?
No, what was our deal?
Our deal was, I said to Jeff, how do you think you can be most productive? And he said, if I only do things I like to do. And I said, that's the deal then. I will do all the stuff you don't like to do. You do what you like to do.
That's so interesting, because what I remember this conversation going was you saying, how can you have the biggest impact on University Games? How can you add the most value to University Games? And I said, you know what? If I do some things that free you up to do other things to grow the company, then that will be the best thing that could possibly be done for University Games. So I took a bunch of stuff off of your plate, right?
No, that's not what happened.
That is totally what happened.
I said you don't have to have anyone reporting to you.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't want anybody reporting.
Right.
That was true.
I said you don't
until your cousin. You made your cousin report
my
to
cousin
me.
Karen. That didn't last very long.
It didn't last that long.
Well, she didn't.
Well, you know what? The best.
She couldn't work 20 hours a day like you.
Yeah, she couldn't keep up with us. There was no question about that. But the interesting piece of it was that I knew that she wasn't going to last when she said, "Gosh, that was a great initial meeting. I can't wait for the next meeting." I said, "No, that was it. We're not meeting again. That's what we're going to do. Bob and I I and you just agreed with what we're going to do for the entire year.
Right.
So let's get to work.
Right.
And she said, but don't we have to have another meeting? And I said, no, we're not having meetings. We don't do meetings. We just do the work. We just do the work. So
yeah, we've built University Games on no meetings, and we still, if you talk to people there today, they have one sales and marketing meeting a week, and then everything else is pretty informal, except the marketing people have 2 5 o'clock meetings where they drink beers with me.
And I was
And
going to ask if those had gone away. So
no,
I'm
we
glad to
still
hear
do
that.
that.
They're still there.
And they're Tuesdays and Fridays, and they start at 5 o'clock, and we start every meeting by having, a beer. So I thought, since you brought it up, I would have a beer. Would you like one?
Glad I can help. I'm going to pass.
Oh, you're going to pass.
It's very kind
Good.
offer. Well, I have an audition coming up, and I don't want to ruin it.
You don't want to ruin it for the audition for your other job. I can understand
For my
that.
night job to
For
go
your
with my
night
day job.
Right. For your night job where you're going to be well paid, the same as what I get paid
Same
for
as
doing
what
it.
you got. Exactly what I'm after.
Well, I have this beer
Not a
out.
penny more, by the way. Not a penny more.
I have this beer out for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
One is because I'm very thirsty, and
good
we're
reason.
taping this at 10 in the morning, and this is when I'd like to have a beer.
Bob, come on, tell the truth. It's really 6 in the morning.
Well, we had to get up before the sun, or the lights wouldn't be right in this room.
Yep.
The second reason is you and I drank a lot of beer together.
We did used to drink a lot of beer together.
I know.
I know.
And you don't drink beer as much anymore.
That would be an accurate statement.
So just, if you were going to just guess,
Uh-huh.
how many beers do you think you drank between 1991 and 2000 when you worked at University Games? And how many beers have you drank between 2010 and 2020?
I probably drank on the order of 2,800 to 3,000 beers during the decade of the 90s.
When you worked at University
When I worked
Games?
at University Games.
When you were a stud?
Back when I was a stud.
We have a millennial women audience
Oh,
here.
sorry. No. Excuse me. Hi. Can you just swing the camera over here, please? And then between, I'm sorry, what was the other offer? What was the other
2010
range?
to 2020.
Oh, that was an easy 0.
Zero full beers.
0 full beers.
So how do you feel about maybe having a beer right now?
I think that's enough. I've had more than that inhalation was more than I've had in the last decade.
Well, I enjoyed more than half of those beers that you drank.
Okay.
What was it, 2,800?
2,800 is 2,800.
I enjoyed at least 1,400
average.
of those with you.
Yeah.
And I will say on a sincere note that I miss those times. Because now when we go out, it's me drinking beer, you drinking a glass of water. But
I still do
you're
okay
still fun.
on the
You're still
conversation
fun.
side,
You're
yeah.
still fun.
All right.
You're still fun. It's not.
But I guess I'm not a stud anymore.
You're not a stud anymore if you don't drink beer. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of letters on this.
Yeah.
All right. You have worked since you left University Games for a Dutch toy company.
Correct.
A New York-based book publisher.
Correct.
Scholastic.
Yes.
Goliath and Scholastic,
Yeah.
and now you're working for a German company. How would you compare and contrast those? And I realize some of this is one data point, so it's kind of a stereotype. But what do you see as, for people thinking about working for international companies? What do you think are the challenges, and what do you find to be really fun?
Yeah. So it's interesting that in terms of comparing and contrasting, these were all, one of them was in the kids publishing business. It was the intersection of books and toys.
Yeah,
Right?
and that was Klutz Press.
That was Klutz Press.
Yeah.
And then the other one was a company called Goliath, as you said, which is Dutch, and a company called Amigo, which is German. And it's interesting to have 3 completely different approaches to business amongst all of those companies.
Yeah.
So Scholastic is an old line publisher that's very much of a book business. So it's a situation where they have all these horrible business models that they have to follow. They have
Because
the
it's
Robinson
based on
Patman Act.
yeah.
They have returnable merchandise. It's a mess.
It
The book
stinks
business
if
is
you have
it's
to
a
worry
mess.
about
Don't worry.
congressional legislation.
If you have to follow the laws of this
Right.
country,
I
oh my
know.
God, it's awful.
Glad we don't have to
Yeah,
do
no,
that.
luckily, it's the Wild West here. Boom. Giddy up from the, what did we say? What did you say?
Cowboy.
Cowboy,
It's
right. The
it's
cowboy
it's the
look.
Cowboy. No, it's the cowboy shot.
Oh, it's a cowboy shot, right.
Yeah.
So for those of you at home, just so you'll know, I was informed that they'll only be shooting us from the waist up, and that's called
Where we keep our holsters.
cowboy.
Right.
So it's from the holsters up.
Yeah.
Here we go. So anyway, so Scholastic was interesting for me in joining a very large company. It was the largest company I'd ever worked for. It's about a $2 billion company. They have a bunch of different divisions, and we were in the trade divisions, which means we were the lonely stepchildren of Scholastic, because so much of their business is based on selling to schools, and we were selling to consumers, right? We were selling to retailers who were selling to consumers. And so the amazing thing for me was how long it takes to get book product to market. I mean, you and I, when we were working at University Games, we would have an idea, and I think the fastest game we ever did was 9.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I was going to say, wasn't the name of that movie? Was that 9.5 weeks?
It is 9.5 weeks.
Was it 9.5? Yeah,
it's 9.5 weeks.
Because it was 9.5 weeks. We did I think it was the Carmen Sandiego game. We wrote 1,200 geography questions to do the first Carmen Sandiego game, got them approved by the National Geographic Society, and then got the game published to market 9.5 weeks after we got the license and got the idea for it, right?
Yeah.
That was the fastest.
That was our very fastest.
If we could get something out in the publishing business in 9.5 months, that would be the fastest. Wow. Goliath is a different style of product. They do larger, engineered, what we call skill and action games in the industry, so theirs took a long time as well. Here in Amigo, we have a super fast track, because we're taking things that we think are the best games that this German company has made over the course of their 40 years in business and adapting them for the US market. So we're back on that relatively speedy path to market for product, which I like.
Can you do it in 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, we can absolutely go in 3 or 4 months.
That's fantastic. And so, and I think most people like that better, except for my cousin Karen, who likes lots of meetings.
Likes the meetings, I know.
So then it takes longer. It takes a long time. Any other than speed to market, any other real differences between the American companies and the European companies?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, though, that I think it had more to do with the complexion and the personalities of the people that ran the companies, more so than the actual cultural elements. So, for example, when I worked at Goliath, it was the only place I've ever worked where they said, you need to spend more money. Right? They were very much about us making sure that we were promoting our products. They wanted us to have a large TV budget, and we'd say, we're not sure if this is working, maybe we better pull back on the budget a little bit, and they'd say, no, more, let's build it. So that was, I think, that didn't have anything to do with the Dutch personality.
No, that was
Dutch
just the people.
Tend to be fairly conservative, right? The Germans are super conservative. We're on a nice, slow track to build.
So they're not telling you to spend more money.
They're not telling me to spend more money. They're comfortable with the amount of money that we spend, and they give us the opportunity to, in effect, run our own business the way we think we want to run it.
And is the result that the Dutch company grew a lot faster than the German company is going to grow, or is it not related?
The Dutch company grew faster once they started growing. They kind of followed the same path that this our U.S. subsidiary of the German company is following for the first 3 or 4 years, and didn't do anything. It was when they started investing heavily that their growth path went up.
And do you think, like, if you came back to University Games after having those experiences, would you advocate that we should be doing what the Dutch company was doing? We should be
an audition or an interview, Bob?
No. I'm just curious.
Okay. For the type.
No, your last job I'm taking, so there's no role for you. I'm already the president.
All right. So, for the type of product they make, I think they have to. They design much like some of the larger companies in the industry. They're designing product that is going to work well on television. So if University Games decides that this is the time that we want to make products that are going to work on TV, then we should probably be thinking about promoting them on TV. If we continue to make products that don't necessarily need TV advertising, that aren't built around a TV promotion strategy, then no. I mean, right? It really depends on the product.
And when you look at your different jobs, what have you found about yourself that when you take all the jobs you've had, you like to do the best?
For me, the most exciting part is taking something from the idea stage to actually standing in a store, because you taught me this. We stand in stores and we watch consumers shop, right? We stand there for an hour or 2 hours and watch how they approach the shelf, what they do, what they look at, what they pick up and put back. But if it's an idea for a game that I've come up with and produce that product and put it on the shelf, and somebody walks up and grabs it off the shelf, that's the high point. There's nothing, I don't know if you still feel that way, but there's nothing that beats that. Besides the beer, of course. That I know.
For me, it's going to a birthday party and seeing a little child open up a present. It's one of our games, and I didn't give it to him. Somebody else bought it and gave it to him. That for me is the biggest thrill. But it's the same kind of idea.
Same kind of idea. It's the product. I mean, it's getting our hands touching something that's going to make fun for kids, bring families together, right? All the great reasons that we're in the game business.
When you're with Amigo, you guys are introducing card games and board games. How do you avoid, or do you worry at all about being knocked off or ripped off. I mean, we had a situation here earlier today where somebody came in and said they were going to sue us because we had ripped them off on something, and we said, well, when did your product come out? And they said 2019, and we said, well, this product's been out since 2016.
Exactly.
Right. That's what they said. That's exactly our point, and you've copied us. So
then you beat us to market.
Right, by 3 years. So how do you worry about that at all with the Amigo games?
We do not. I mean, we have the advantage, as I said, of pulling from the archive. So Amigo's produced a little over 1,000 games in 40 years, right? So I get to sift through those games and pull out the ones that I think are right for the U.S. market.
And how many of them have you actually played? I mean, a lot you can just look at and read a description and say that's not right.
Probably played, I don't know, 120 in the
Wow.
2.5 years that I've been doing this. Yeah,
that is so cool.
It is.
I
really cool.
remember when we were working on doing a Disney trivia game, and you went down to Disney and you went through their archives, and it was like a total mess.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yeah, we were
and you got all of these original cells and things, and they let you take them.
I know.
Do you feel kind of the same thing with Amigo going through all their 1,000 games, or do they have it organized differently?
They have it organized differently, and they also have final production copies. So I'm not looking at the original prototypes.
Oh, okay.
The Disney thing was amazing. So I went down to the Disney archives because we were working on a
this
game
was
for the Disney store.
1994,
this would have been 94. This
yeah,
was 1994. And they literally handed, and we needed some artwork because we wanted to do a game. I think it was you actually that said, I'll give you credit for this. So we were talking about doing a Disney trivia game.
It's nice of you to do that because no one ever does.
Well, here
Give
it
me
is.
credit for
Okay,
anything.
circle the day on your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. Today's the day Bob Moog gets credit.
Gets credit
This
for
is
an
it.
idea.
So you said, look, we're doing this Disney trivia game. It's visual. We need to have some pictures in this game. We have to figure out a way to have pictures in this
magical
game.
moments.
It was Disney's magical moments.
Yeah.
So in addition to writing some really fun trivia questions, we had to go find actual pictures we could put in the game, and I went down to the Disney archive and met the librarian.
Yeah, we wanted to go all the way back like 50 years.
Yeah,
whenever
we were going.
Disney had started.
And they said, "Well, here you go. Take a look." And in shoe boxes, I swear to God, they were shoe boxes, original cells from these movies. And I got to. It's like, do you need me to put on gloves, or should I be sealed in a hermetically sealed
And this
room?
is before eBay. These things would sell for tens
I
of
know. I
thousands
should have
of dollars
stuffed some into my pocket. Then I wouldn't need a day job or a night job.
Well, do we
amazing.
have any of them? Because we printed some of that stuff in the game. How do we do it?
We selected the ones that we wanted, and they did. They actually
Send
made
them
the
to us on
film.
a
We
disc.
told them the specs. They made us the discs. Didn't this is
No,
1994?
Disc didn't even exist.
No discs. No, they then made it into film that they sent to us that we then incorporated into the game.
All right. I'm asking everyone this question, and it's sort of a dumb question, but I've asked
that's
you.
That's a great lead-in.
Yeah,
to a
I'm really a good interviewer.
You're a fantastic interviewer.
And you've been interviewed before, and you've probably never been interviewed by anyone who asked you the questions I asked.
No, that's true, and I haven't been interviewed by anybody who said this is a really dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Hi, Lolly. We have a friend of ours outside the booth, but we're going to ignore her because we are taping.
On the air.
We're on air. So, what's your favorite game?
My favorite game of all time is a game that you and I worked on together called Phractured Phrases.
Really?
You remember Phractured Phrases?
Yes.
I love Phractured Phrases.
That is such a great story,
I
too.
love Phractured Phrases. So it is a great story. Let me tell you. I'll tell you about the game, and then Bob can tell you the story. How's that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So this is a game we thought we had the best idea ever for a game. The idea
better
was
than Trivial Pursuit.
Better than Trivial Pursuit. The idea was that we would take famous quotations that people would recognize, and you'll have to get the backstory from Bob to understand why this gets funnier as it goes along. But our idea for the game was that you would replace two words in this quotation with two other words. So I would say, "Don't one of you fire until you see the size of their thighs." And all the rest of the players have to figure out which words have been replaced.
And you have to replace size and thighs with whites and eyes.
Don't fire until you see the whites.
And we usually did rhymes.
Yeah, and they were fantastic. They were so much
really
fun.
funny.
We were in hysterics. We were laughing the entire time.
And I think we did the whole thing.
You and I did the whole thing. I think we were probably drinking a couple of those 2,800 beers. Right.
More than a couple.
It tanked. It was like the worst.
It did terrible. Maybe it should be. Maybe it would sell
ever.
now. Maybe we were ahead of ourselves.
Maybe we were.
And Phractured was with a PH. It wasn't with an F.
Yeah, exactly.
So the story is it's a kooky story. A guy who in the 90s was very famous as a real estate baron named
very rich,
named Trammell Crow, came up with this idea for a game that had to do with remembering and recognizing biblical verses. And we looked at it and we said, well, this is a good idea, but instead of biblical verses, it should be any kind of phrase. So we did it, and he said, I want to see your game. and we flew to Dallas, and he put us up in the penthouse of a hotel that he had.
It was the entire floor.
And we had the entire floor.
It was huge.
And we had a dining room.
Almost as big as this studio.
We had a dining room that was, it's not quite as big as the studio,
Yeah,
but it
it's
was
almost
big.
as big. Is that
So
almost
we
as
had a
big as
dining room table that seated about 18 people. And he comes over, and we had free room service, free room. It was like the best deal I've ever had in my life.
It might have been the fanciest place I've ever
It's
stayed.
unbelievable. And we're sleeping in there, and Jeff's room is about 50 yards from my room, but we're in the same suite. And he comes up, and we present the game, and we're so excited, and we're eating like quail and caviar.
Wait, 1 sec though. So the idea was that he had his game,
Yeah.
and there was our game, and we said, we think that your game is great, but it might be a little limited. So his game, the gameplay, if I remember, was he would read you a quotation. You had to tell which book of the Bible it came from, right? And you had to who the speaker was, right?
Yeah,
you had to identify
who
the
said it.
speaker and the source. if
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
had to say
mistaken,
like
right?
John Ecclesiastes. I don't know if they
Something
go
like that,
together,
yeah.
but something like that.
33:6.
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
Something like that. It was a really fun.
The president would know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
And so the idea was that we were going to do a focus group with 18 people. He
Oh,
had
that's
chosen.
right. I
He
forgot.
had I know
I
you
forgot
forgot.
the
That's why I'm
focus
telling.
group.
That's why
I
I'm helping
forgot
tell
the
the
focus
story.
group.
So that was why he put us up in this penthouse, so
that's
that
right.
he
So
could
the
have
focus
all of
would
his
come.
friends come. And the deal was, whichever game his friends,
Right.
He stacked the deck. His friends liked better would be the one that we
Right.
would produce, right?
And we were positive ours was going to get picked because the market for people who memorize Bible verses is much narrower than the people who want to take two words and
I
change
think
them.
he snuck a couple Shakespeare quotations in there.
He
too.
might
I
have,
think,
but they were
not
about
that
the
many.
Bible. They were biblical. They said thou or art or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, he did it with his 18 people, and then he came back and he said they liked ours much better.
Ours.
Ours.
Not his, but ours, right?
He said they liked yours much better, which
Right.
was ours.
Correct.
And then he said, so I think that's the game you should do, but I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So he wanted no royalty. He didn't want to fund it. He
Yep.
wanted nothing to do with it, but he thought we should do that game.
Yeah.
And he ended up a little bitter about the whole thing, but we had a great time in Dallas.
We did. We had a great time in Dallas, and we made a really. If you can find a copy of Phractured
Yes.
Phrases someplace,
I would think
it is
on
such a
eBay.
fun game. You
Yeah.
should buy it. It
It's-
is an accessible.
It's PH
quote.
fractured phrase.
Fractured Phrases. So
And the whole thing is a great
That's my favorite
story.
game.
And
what's your? May I ask? What's your favorite game? Or should I save that for when I interview you?
No, don't, because it's a dumb question.
Is it a dumb question? I'm gonna ask you
Clue-
what your favorite
Clue
deal is.
was my favorite when I was growing
Yeah.
up. And of our games, 20 Questions is always going to
Yep.
be my favorite.
Yeah.
It was transitional and transformational for the company. So that's always going to be my favorite. And that was one of the first games that I invented.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was pretty much what I wanted to talk about.
We covered it all.
How are we doing time-wise?
We're way over. I'm
Okay.
sure we're way over.
Okay.
The audience of
Have
7
they already
people
left?
watching is down to 3, and 2 of
Okay.
those are asleep.
But if you're millennials and you're women, Jeff Pinsker lives
Doesn't
in
drink-
Austin, Texas,
and doesn't drink beer anymore.
drink beer anymore. Bob Moog, San Francisco, and this has been great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks
Yeah.
for watching.